It just wouldn't be right if one of our 12 days of SwitchUp wasn't a sales video, and my goodness, what a sale we've got for you today. The name of the person on the screen who has won a copy of Dying Light, well, it's on the screen, and if you want to win a copy, just leave your comments down below. Let us know which of our 12 days of SwitchUp videos so far you've enjoyed, and remember, each of your comments means you're entered into our Switch OLED giveaway. We've got 2 to give away, one to the general masses, and another one to those who have bought something through our website using our discount code SwitchUp. It's a great way to save even more on all of these sales, and I think already over like, what, 10,000 euros? What's that in pounds? I don't know, like £8,000 worth this week of Eshop cards and Xbox cards have been bought. So about £1,000 in savings with the 10% off. Alright, this is going to be painful on the wallet, there's no two ways about it, but we'll try and make sure we've got some very cheap games in here, as well as the customary 2 you should avoid at the end. Alright, oh no. I don't know why I do these videos. I'm in exactly the same boat. Like, I guarantee you, every time I do one, I buy 2 or 3 new games. What's on sale? Let's find out. Let's start strong then. Oxenfree for 89p, or your regional equivalent, is a ludicrous saving. Obviously, I think in 2022 we have Oxenfree 2 on the way. If you're not sure what it is, well, it's an adventure game featuring a group of friends who go and visit this strange island. Everything gets a bit odd and the wheels come off pretty quick, but it's the conversations between Alex and the rest of her friends that really heighten the experience. It feels a little bit like Stand By Me. They added in some HD rumble and other bits and bobs for the Switch version, and there are lots of little choices to be made. Now, it has a download size of 2.2 gigs, and it's not a long game. For 89 pence, you're looking at around about 4 or 5 hours of gameplay.
You used to come here a lot as a kid, right? To the island. I mean, that's what Ren made it sound like.
Yeah, but I mean...
You used to come here a lot as a kid, right? You used to come here a lot as a kid.
Something's...
One of the biggest issues with running a YouTube channel are the constant attempts to steal my data when online. It's no exaggeration to say we've had at least 5 emails a day since we started to get big, with different phishing schemes, people trying to find our location, and everything in between. If you do anything online and you haven't got a VPN, then you have a lot more faith in companies and your security than I do. I've been using Atlas VPN since our last sponsorship deal. A VPN means virtual private network, and it allows you to mask your traffic when online. By doing this, you can hide your information, hide your location, keep your IP address safe, and access different video services from other countries. If you're interested through SwitchUp, you can get the best value on the market for any VPN. It's $1.39 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can then apply this to unlimited devices, stop any annoying ads or malware, and save some cash by shopping in different regions at their local prices. If you're a SwitchUp subscriber, you can get a huge discount at the moment, which is their 3-year subscription for just $1.39 a month. It only applies for a short time, so if you've got any interest at all, do check those links out. I'll pop those in the top pinned comment. So far then, we've just spent less than £1. This is alright. Let's crank that up a little bit with a £5 spend on Blasphemous. That's a 75% discount, and that sale goes on until January the 6th. Obviously the cheapest it's ever been by a country mile, and a ludicrously good price on what is a lovely game. There are some Souls-like elements here, I guess. You'll find ridiculously difficult boss fights. You can change your build and loadout using different relics, rosary beads and prayers, and it's a game that's aged extremely well since launch. It does have its flaws, but it has a certain charm about it. Personally, I think this is one of the best implementations of pixel art on Switch, and for a £5 you could do a lot worse. So far we've only spent £6. Let's go. What's up next? Then we've got the outstanding Torchlight 2. This is £4.49, that's 75% off, or your regional equivalent. Co-developed with Panic Button and Runic Games, it even has a lovable unicorn that you can have as an unlockable sidekick. I mean, why wouldn't you? It has online co-op for up to 4 players. It's very Diablo-esque, and once you've completed the main game, there's also a new game plus. Now this one does have a demo available, so I'd strongly suggest checking that out, as well as our review. I'll pop a link to that in the description. It's a very long, well, I say very long, not too long. It's around about 20 hours plus. You're likely to spend a lot more than that if you want to do everything. The real negative for this one though is that it doesn't have 4-player local split screen. That's a shame. And if you're after that, maybe go for Diablo 3, which is also on sale, except about 5 times the price. Then I had to put it in this one in case some of you missed my community post. It's Saints Row 4 for £2.44. That's 93% off. Ludicrous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's a no-brainer. Go out and buy it. It's a very fun game. It takes elements of some of the best 90s and early 2000s superhero games, things like Crackdown and, I forget the name of the other one, but there were two that were just amazing. It's got all the ridiculous humour you'd expect in there. You're going to become the president, you're going to be fighting aliens by the dozen, and you're going to be using certain floppy weapons. Let's just put it that way. It's got parodies of essentially every game you may have come across in the past, and it's well worth it. Now, alternative, if you're not into number 4 and you prefer number 3, that's also on a huge 65% off sale, taking that down to £12.24. They've all got online options as well, and online co-op and bits and bobs you can do. And with an 8.5GB download, it's not too bad. And we've got a review of this one if you want to check that out. I think it had like 10,000 views since this sale started. The kids picked this week then, one that we've been working through as a family because it's got 4-player co-op. It's Guacamelee 2. What an incredible game. This is such a good, fun action Metroidvania. It has drop in and drop out 4-player, which works perfectly for us. And it's got really nice, slick combat. It's very easy to pick up and play. There are secrets to discover in the world. There's a really bizarre and strange set of characters. And while, yeah, it does go on sale a lot, this is by far the lowest it's ever been on sale. And if you're not sure, you're not quite sure, maybe check out our full review of it. The first one's also on sale for £2.39, so I mean, you might as well pick them both up. They're about 10 hours long, and all these sales go on until the end of the year. If you're after something a bit different, then try out Sakuna of Rice and Ruin. We've got a review of we've got a Glen of this one. We've got a review of this one on the channel from Glen, and it was just so different. It uses that Japanese perfectionism as one of the base mechanics of the game, which some people loved and some didn't. You have a rice paddy, which as you gradually tend, and you really do have to manually tend this rice paddy, which is a bit odd, but you'll see it works out in the review. And then that helps with different skills and attributes. You go out on runs, in air quotes, where it's a side-scrolling action game, but it's got a very nice character to it, this one, and I love that art style as well. I think Edelweiss, the developer, did a brilliant job, and it's published by Marvelous. Now, this is 6.3 gigs. It's over 30 hours of gameplay, and yeah, 40% off, the cheapest it's ever been. Essential, absolutely essential for your lists.
If you're gonna act all high and mighty, why don't you actually earn that respect by doing some dang work around here? Hey, Brat!
From that then to one of the top 5 best games on Switch. Like, it annoys me actually because it doesn't get enough attention. It's incredible. I challenge you not to play this next one and go, oh my goodness. There's a point in the story which suddenly there's realization in the player, and if they can do that well in a game, it really can make it a poignant experience. And Crosscode for me is one of the most poignant games I've played on Switch. Now, this currently has a 40% discount. That's again the cheapest it's ever been, taking it down to £10.79 or your regional equivalent. If you're not aware, there's also a DLC for it called A New Home, which is 40% off. So if you've played through the original, maybe think about picking that up. It's modeled on the 16-bit SNES games, but it's got a much more adult story than many of those. It's a world within a world. I don't want to spoil too much, but there are dungeons here. There's a decent cast of side characters. There are over 120 different enemies and 30 boss fights, and lots of character customization in the form of combat arts. There are 90 here. But as always for me, it's about the soundtrack. This game has an incredible 60-track OST, and you can probably hear I'm a little bit excited because it's reminded me how much I love this game. Now, the main story is going to take you about 34 hours to finish, but there's loads of hidden content. Oh, Crosscode, what a game. That sale goes on until the end of the year. And we hop over from that absolute win to Eastward, which may actually be my highest score ever on the channel. Now, obviously, games can be a subjective experience, and I'm not saying Eastward's perfect. The ending's a little bit stumbly, shall I say, but overall, it's lovely. You need to expect a lot of dialogue. This isn't just an ARPG or an action-adventure, where you're just hacking and slashing the whole time and most of it's combat. It's probably a 60-40, maybe 70-30 split between narration and dialogue, and then going out and doing these dungeon areas bosses and other things such as boss fights. But what it does so incredibly well is it creates a world that you actually feel like you've experienced. It's got very adult humour, but it's also a game that your kids can watch and you won't feel like you're the worst parent ever. Look, you've got a frying pan as a weapon. I mean, what more could you want? And there's a good chemistry between John and Sam. There's a cooking mechanic in the game that's probably a bit underdone, honestly. It's a bit lent on for things like healing, but it's also not utilised as well as it could have been. But the whole package of the game and the whole feel of it had a bit of a Donnie Darko vibe to it, but then draped with a classic Final Fantasy. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. You're looking at about 20 hours to finish, so it's not overly long. 1.7 gigs is nothing really. And yeah, I should imagine this is going to be on many Game of the Year lists. Pick it up now at 10% off. That takes it down to £19.79. Then we've got Trials of Mana, or Mana, depending on which part of the world you're from. And spoiler warning, this is one of, I believe, Glen's Games of the Year. It's half price. It's a brilliant action RPG, and it's a lovingly crafted remake of the classic 1995 Seiken Densetsu 3. What I liked about it personally was that you got to choose 3 different characters, and then as you play the game, you also get a choice of whether you experience their backstories. How often are you dragged through these stories in an RPG and you're like, yeah, I'll skip thanks, but having the choice to actually go back and play those, or completely not, and just have a small brief story recap, I like that. I think that's decent, and it's taking the player's time into account. Depending on who you choose to play as, it will change the story outcomes, and by having multiple characters, there's actually a bit of replayability here. There are certain points in the story where your character will change class and you can almost shift. This gives you new abilities and it keeps things nice and fresh. It doesn't hurt that the game looks lovely as well, and it clocks in at 10.6 gigs. Next up then, we've got Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and look, it's had its ups and downs on Switch. It launched with very bad slowdown at the end of the game. It had an input delay which was a bit of a disaster, and it's not perfect. There's still moments at the end of the title where you're going to experience a few little issues, but overall at 60% off, taking it down to £13.99, and with most of the input delay fixed, it's still well worth that. There's a lot of gameplay here. It's a classic Metroidvania. You'll find checkpoints, boss fights, different gear and loadouts to use, and you'll be trying to save humanity, but I had a lot of fun on it. Now, admittedly, I left it until it was patched up and featured it in an all patched up video, and it's not perfect, but I personally think that developer ArtPlay have done enough to make a solid Metroidvania experience that most players are going to enjoy. If they can just get past all the people saying, oh, it's got performance issues at the end, yeah, I still think there's enough here. You're looking at maybe 15 hours to complete the main story, but there's lots of extras and hidden areas and items. There is also a DLC pack called Eager's Backpack that's 60% off at the moment. That adds in some fan favourite weapons, so I wouldn't say it's essential. It's more really if you just want to support the devs, I guess. Okay, so this is the moment where we look at 2 games you should avoid, but as this is our 12 days of SwitchUp Christmas special, I thought we'd do it a little bit different. I thought we'd put in an avoid, and then we'd put in the game that you should buy instead. So with that said, what should you avoid on Switch? Well, firstly, personally, I would avoid Sonic Forces. Now, I read a really interesting comment from one of our subscribers, I think it was one of our subscribers, but it was about the new Sonic open world Breath of the Sonic that we saw. And they essentially said the problem with Team Sonic isn't that they try and stick with what's already been, it's that they don't. It's that they always try and mix it up, and they never focus on what actually makes Sonic good. Now, I personally haven't got a problem with the team mixing it up, but you've got to make sure your formula's right in the first place. Sonic Forces isn't a terrible game. It's not, it's not awful, but when you stick it next to the alternative, which in my opinion is the much more accomplished Sonic Mania, you can see where the issues arise. Sonic Mania, they listened to essentially a fan, and he was able to have some creative control in designing Sonic 4 in air quotes, and guess what? Everyone loved it. It didn't have silly fancy bells and whistles. He was able to refine a few of the moves and even introduce a couple of new skills, and it had a built-in soundtrack, and it was classic Sonic, and you could play with 2 players in co-op. The shock horror, the Sonic fans really liked it. That one is currently 50% off, and Christian Whitehead, the developer, nailed what I think many of us have been trying to say for a while now. Now look, that doesn't mean there's not still room for a Sonic of the Wild, but I don't think it would be too difficult to have one, or maybe one every couple of years, classic Sonic games that were just fun. Maybe that's me being a bit pedantic, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. And then there's Goner 2, which for me was such a disappointment. I loved the first Goner game, and I hate to say it, but I just think Art in Heart They didn't get it right here. Goner thrives on its obscurity, and the runs here can be very, very frustrating. There's a balance of gameplay that's required to make a roguelite an enjoyable experience, as opposed to one that's, well, not. And I don't think this sequel, it just doesn't quite hit the mark for me. A great alternative, honestly, would be to pick up the first game. Goner is on an 80% sale. It does everything right that I've just said they got wrong in the sequel. You're constantly unlocking new abilities and skills, and you get to choose what you use before you go on your runs, and there's lots of secrets here. The music's also quality. I just didn't like the second one. It didn't hit the mark at all. Goner is £1.79. Now, I don't usually go crazy and fire tons of games into any lists, because that doesn't really help someone. If I give you 50 games, what's the point? Can you actually still choose something? I don't know, I certainly couldn't, but we are going to have a bonus round, and it's the quickfire round. Here we go. Ender Lilies, Quieters of the Night, incredible Metroidvania, well worth picking up. Play as a girl who's got an alter ego who's a strange spirit with a sword. 12 to 20 hours. Lovely visuals, great audio. Check out the review. Full Metal Fury is one of the best co-op games on Switch, can be played solo and has some brilliant action combat. There are different skills, loads of boss fights, and an open world map where you can choose your next path. Completely hidden gem, definitely worth picking up. £4.49, 70% off, yes please. Curse of the Dead Gods for someone who's looking for a Hades alternative. As you go through the areas, you have to take on a curse, but if you can carry this curse through to the end of the round, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. This is all about skill, timing, and parrying, and there's a light-based mechanic, meaning you have to use light to do more damage. 30% off, the cheapest it's ever been. Unmetal is Metal Gear Solid if it was written by the people that wrote Hot Shots Part 2. Ridiculous humour, very funny voice acting, and some classic stealth gameplay mechanics. It's made by Unepic Fran, who is a legendary indie developer. Well worth it, and we have a review of this one. And finally, Balan Wonder... Get the Ow, told you your name's not on the list. Embarrassing. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching our 12 days of SwitchUp. Remember to leave your comments down below. And also, if you want to save 10%, as literally hundreds of you have already done on any of these sales, just buy your eShop cards on our website. At the moment, we are EU, or most EU regions, and US. We're not Canada yet, but we're working on it. And we're also working on the South American regions. It really takes a while, and for every purchase made, obviously we get a tiny little kickback, so it supports the channel. Thanks to all of you. It's been an incredible time. We are absolutely shattered after these 12 days videos. We've got our last ones coming up, including the best games of the year, etc., and your picks as well that you voted on. Thanks from Glen and I. You guys are amazing. If for whatever reason you're not going to be around the channel, have a very Merry Christmas. And as always, thanks to our patrons for all things Switch, all the time. Keep it Switch up. I wonder if anyone says this when I say it. Let's find out. Cheers, guys. See ya! Oh, it's beginning to look a lot like SwitchUp. This is still on, isn't it?